Hi, this is Kelly Borsheim. Join me, won't you?
All right, so here we are on my Red, White, and Passion project. This is the model over here, and this is my canvas. You'll note that I don't really have them side by side. I've actually got the canvas quite in front of me. Normally, these sorts of projects are done with using the site size method, which is a way to set the canvas up in about the area that the model is in, and then you step back about 2 meters and you judge, and you walk back and forth, and you walk back and forth, and you make a mark here, and you walk back and you line everything up. There's the top of the vase here, there's this, and it's a way to help your drawing. I'm a little bit bored with that, and I'm trying to move out of doing exactly what I see kind of thing, and yet that's going to be my training. However, I want to talk about now what I'm doing here. So I've been painting tonight the marble base here. I've got some shadow around this white shiny object here, and then it does a circular thing. Now, you'll see from my model here that I ran out of marble, okay? So right there, that would continue into my composition, as you see here. And I'm not going to bother with the broken thing because I don't feel that it adds anything to the composition at this point. So what I wanted to talk about here now is I'm starting to develop this. Now, one of the fun exercises about doing a white object like this that's shiny is because you see the highlight. I don't know if it'll meter right there. Let's see if I can turn this maybe. There we go. A little bit better. Maybe turn it down. There we go. So do you see the highlight that's shining there and there? It would on the top. There's a wee bit on the top. You just can't see it from this distance. But also I have the top a little bit shadowed from my scarf that I've hung up there. All right, so the point is that the whitest part on this entire composition is actually the highlight in these two shiny places of objects. So what I want to do is be able to convince you that this object is white when most of the painting is not going to be white. Okay, so my light source is coming from here. Okay, so that means that this is not going to hit in the perfect center. That would actually flatten the action, and I don't want that because I want to have this nice curve that I've got here. So the light's coming from this way. As the round shape curves around, it's going down under, and then of course the white marble is going to bounce back up into here, as will the flower reflecting in there. I've got this way too dark right now. I tend to start that way. I don't know why. My teachers always tried to get me to do things right the first time, but I seem to rebel against it. And I'm okay with it because at some point I've accepted how my brain wants to work. Now, while I'm developing these forms here, knowing I'm going to keep this space and a wee bit up there as the lightest lights I can possibly do, which is probably going to be just this here, unless I actually add physical white paint, which I'll probably add white paint at the end. So everything else around here is going to be darker, darker, darker. And you can see how gradually, do you see how my model moves white, 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 dark, and then it gets really dark here. And then where the white marble bounces up against, it gets light. But this light is never as light as anything that's actually considered a light tone. These are half tones in here, and then we go in, and this is the shadow stuff. All right, so what I'm doing now is I'm working with another light focused on this. So if I turn this off, do you see how I'm doing that? However, if you look at my model here, watch when I turn the light off. Let me pose this for the dark there. Okay, so that's a little bit what she's looking at. You see the highlights. Now when I turn the light on, do you see how it changes? I'm going to go back and forth a couple times. You see it puts some more light there on the back in the red. And actually, what's happening back in here might actually be nicer because it's not so contrasty as the red going straight to dark. Now, another thing to consider is that I'm taking a photograph. That's not what real life looks like, okay? So my point is that the white marble is not going to be as white as the white object that's sitting on top of it. However, I need you to believe it's white. I'm looking at this now and it looks really muddy. There's a chance that I'm going to be putting some white in. I'm certainly going to put white in on this top edge right here so that you see it. My light source is coming from here. I'll really focus the light over here and then let it drift off because I know this is my center point, my focal of interest, okay? Focal point of interest. All right, so get back here. Now, Edges is something that a lot of times you think of at the end. You certainly check it at the end to make sure you're doing everything. And I'm also needing to check my shapes. I can see that as I start putting in tone here, this is way too fat compared to my original. And that's okay, because at some point, as long as this looks good by itself, I don't really care what the original looks like, frankly. But what I want to do is looking at these edges here. Do you see how over here I can tell the end of where this vase is, but the edge is much, much closer. And as I get into the darker part where this starts to go around here, then it gets really dark. Now, I haven't added anything. The red is a different concern, and I'm going to do that at another stage. But today I'm working with just the whites and black to get the basic thing started, and I go in and paint again. So I want to make sure my edges are soft here. More than likely, I will be darkening the very edge of this to match closer to what I've got here, so that when you squint your eyes, you don't see the change. Here it's more contrasty than what I've got here even. But anyway, I'm just letting you know that I'm trying to be consciously aware of where I'm going to lose edges. So do you see right here, I don't have a lot of tone difference between the object, the white object, and its shadow. And I want to lose some of the edges here. I want to lose some of this. I need to have the tone a little bit light so that your brain registers that that the object is not misshapen and does not go this way. But I'm thinking of all those edges now. On this side, I'm going to have some soft edges here against the shadow that's back into the red. Do you see this back in here? But when I come up to this, I really love this crisp difference between these two. And I'm going to play with those. I'm going to actually think about that early on, and we'll be developing that. So, happy painting. I'll be back later. Ciao, ciao. Oh, let me add that I'm also working with warms and cools. So again, in my original, I can see it's a little warm up here and it's a little cooler back in here. I'm starting to develop this. So on my palette, whoops, got my finger holding things. This is a raw umber and this is a black. These are various black and white mixtures. But I can see that a lot of times these are cold grays, because when you mix anything with white, or in fact even when you mix it with blue, the hue becomes colder. So that I'm okay with that. I mix that in, and then you can see this little dab here. This is where I've taken some of my umber and I want to get a warm gray. So right here, I've been developing, even here you can see the difference. Do you see that's very warm, and this is warm, and then this is cold? So I'm starting to play with that right now also, and I'll be developing that as I go. But here you see the more umber, here's just black and white, okay? So this is Kelly Borsheim. Check out my art at borsheimarts.com, and let's keep in touch. Thank you. All right, so let me do a little bit of a quick crit for what I just did here. I generally like what I did here because I can already have a feeling that it's a shiny object, although I can tell you, do you see this halo that's right here? What I mean is I went light for the highlight, darker, 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 darker. Look at that, it's too dark. Lighter and darker. So I screwed up because I lost the form there. So this is too dark and that's too light, and we're going to have to figure out how to blend this. I say we, but you know what I mean, me. There's another problem. There's light and dark. It needs to be a gradation of thing, otherwise it looks like this surface is kind of bumpy. And also look at how bright this reflected light is. Way, way, way too much. However, what I wanted to show you is that I mentioned before about my marble being broken over here on my model, okay? So I'm going to turn the volume down on this. Look. Okay, so let's look at this shadow. Do you see, I mean, not the shadow, but in the reflected light, do you see how the white marble, there's a line that finishes right there, and then as you go up around here, it's all dark, okay? What that is this line of the marble that's being finished. So that is not in my piece. Now, I want to do is not make a reflected light in the form that doesn't actually show what's going on. And since my painting continues the marble, it might be really strange why there's a white line going there. So I'm going to stick this paper here, some song lyrics that I've been meaning to learn. And I'm going to stick the paper here just to give me a white thing as if it continues. Now, look. Do you see how the white up... Whoops. Let's see if I can get it to stay. I really should do this smart and do it with something that's actually straight. But what I meant was that this white shape here now that's reflecting back in, it now curves all the way up. watch that I'm closer. Maybe I can hold this and you can see. So if the marble continues, you see it still has the shadow from the red cloth hanging on it, but you see the reflected light changes. So I need to remember that as I'm going along, and that's good. So anyway, it's those kind of little things that you need to pay attention to, because sometimes in real life your model doesn't do what you want him to do, and that is a normal thing. So in the end, again, you're making a painting and you need to figure out how to make that work. So what I'll do as a note-taking thing is come on up over here and just sort of pull that up inside, okay? In the meantime, I also want to knock it down because it's just too bright. It's ridiculous. And that'll kind of get me started in there. So you can see that the reflected light here is still darker than even it is here, because the light's bouncing down on this marble, making it brighter, and it'll be reflected into that. So I can see also I've got dark here, light there. You see? Light, a little darker, also warmer, grayer, a little darker, and then light, and then dark again. This is a total batch thing. However, when I go back into this and look at this, can you see how transparent that is there? So what it is I don't have enough paint there. So this is a really easy thing for me to remedy. As I put in more paint, I lighten this and I darken that, and I keep going to town. So again, I'll do the same. I'm going to get rid of this highlight, or this halo, and darken this a wee bit. Although I can see, well, can't really see from the model there. More than likely, it's going to be lighting this area. I don't know that I need to really have that darkened, because again, when the painting is all in context by itself, I want it to look like a white object. Now it's not looking like a white object. So now, despite the fact that my highlight has to be the whitest part, I can see that I've got way too much dark going on here. I also see that the shape of this little bauble thing at the top here is not really that good. I need it to be taller and rounder, and I may end up kind of working with the shape here and blending in with the background a little bit. So yeah, I lost my light there. How about that? So I think while my paint is still wet, I'm going to go in and definitely put in some white paint here and lighten up all these tones. And then I'm probably going to stop and let that dry at least overnight. But yeah, because I'll probably start working on something else. And just as a reminder, because I don't remember when I last posted the video for this, the reason that I'm painting around all of the shapes of the passion flowers is because the passion flowers died the next day. So I really decided I wanted to go ahead and paint my models in. Now, I could just as easily have set this up and painted this whole setup, and then later picked my passion flowers and draped them wherever I wanted to and added them in. But I didn't do that, and I'm kind of glad I did, because as it turned out, my landlord decided to kill all the passion flowers because they were covering his hedge, and he really didn't want the hedge to die. So I would have to wait for all next year to have my passion flowers. So I'm glad that I took them when I did. And you take your perks where you can. I've got some things to whiten, so we'll be back in a while. All right, so here's a quick critique of what I've got going on here. I've lightened it quite a bit, which I hope you can see. So this more looks like a white object now. Now, I really did not do a good job of the blending here. I'm going to go in real close so you can see it. I tried to keep it really loose because that's what I'm trying to work towards. I want you to see it as a painting and not as a photographic reproduction, okay? So, I've done now the back of the marble in the distance is gradated. Little dark, little light. Then I come up to the light, and there'll be light at the edge, and then you're going to get a little shadow as it goes down, and it comes out again, catching the light. And then as we go down, I'm going to wrap this around a little bit more like this. I'll still probably want a hard edge on it, but anyway, but this right now is good enough for a first painting. And I'm not convinced that I've done this really well, where I want this darker in the back as it is, and then it comes in forward again. But I want to, right now it's good enough to have a good start with it. So, and then I noticed this on the original, okay? Okay, so I need to pull this a little darker in here too. All right, so come over here. I don't know if you can see this. Let's put finger there and drop it down. Okay, so can you see that in the reflected here, do you see how the curve of the red is coming up and there's a white thing, and then it's kind of curving around like this, okay? I can see it really well from my point of view. Here you go, maybe that's better. Do you see that curve right there? I wasn't sure exactly why it was curving around like that, so I put my finger up here, and I could see my finger. Do you see it moving up right about in here? Watch. So, because I wanted to mentally understand what it is I'm seeing. So this curved line that's there is the straight edge of this reflected into a curving surface. And that's really important for me to know, because as I get through closer into really refining what these lights are, those things I want to notice. So again, notice that the line of this red is coming up in here. This goes above the curve of the circular form here and the shadow line here. Okay, so this is far enough away that it breaks up into that and then curves around. All right, so those are kind of interesting details. So now I'm going to come back to my painting here, and let's touch it here so you get it, because it's not quite as dark as it looked before. Okay, and remember, I'm working with another light here, so when I look at my original and really want to get the divvy on it, I want to zoom in and just look at that. But for now, and again, I'm not doing things the way I was taught, but that's okay, because I'm doing what I want to do. Now I can see that I've developed this to have at least some dimension to it. If you remember what it looked like before, this has some dimension to it. The black background, I'll be doing something other with that later on. As I develop the painting, I'm going to know what exactly I want to do to break up that space, or maybe I won't break it up. But now the part that bothers me the most is the flatness of the red cloth, okay? The red has been drying for several weeks now, actually end of August maximum, so at least a month. I want to come in, the next time I touch this painting, I probably will let this stuff dry here a little bit, because white and black, and actually even they take a long time to dry. So I'm probably going to let this sit as it is for quite a while, and then I'll come back. But when I do come back, it will be to start developing this. Because the flat background is not going to change much of anything. But I like to bring things up together totally so that I can leave it either all washy or all thing. But I need to get these relationships. This certainly needs to go back much, much further. And I want some of this to come out. I want to develop the folds so that you don't wonder so much what all this weird little shapes and stuff are. But I'm really liking how this is developing, and I hope that you are enjoying the process as well. Thanks for following me, Kelly Borsheim at borsheimarts.com. Follow me on Patreon, and I would love it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and all that kind of good stuff. Share it on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and anything you like. Thank you for watching. Ciao.